What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to another edition of Green with Envy here on the 617 podcast, proudly brought to you by Growworthy. As always, this is your boy Will Weir checking in with you. How you doing? How you living? Joining me as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Menakis. And we're gonna get to him in just a second. I know y'all love him. We will bring him in 1 second, but today's a very special day here on Green with Envy. We have one of our childhood idols joining us here on the podcast today. It is Mattapan legend, Boston College basketball legend, former Boston Celtic captain, the one and only Dana Barros. What's going on, Dana?
Nothing. Salute you guys. Appreciate you allowing me to be in your presence and on your show. So, man, again, I'm looking forward to it, man. So, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, we appreciate it. It's kind of crazy for Greg and I. We've been talking and we were just chatting a little bit before we started recording here. Greg and I grew up going to Dana Barros basketball camp. So, sitting there thinking about, all these years later that we'd host you on a podcast seems crazy. Number one, because podcasts didn't exist when we went to the camp. So definitely couldn't imagine that, but having you here, man, it's really cool. So, I want to ask you a little bit before we start talking about your career, start talking about, your feelings on stuff going on with the Celtics and the NBA in general today. I know you just came from practice. So tell us a little bit about what's going on with you right now. Dana Barros basketball camp, Dana Barros basketball club. What's going on in your world, man?
Oh, well, I mean, I've been pretty much doing what I've been doing. I built a 5-court facility right on the Stoughton Eastern line about 3.5 years ago. So I've been doing the old AAU thing. I have 40 AAU teams. We have year-round clinics, camps. We go from like little dribblers, which is like 5 years old, all the way up to high school. We have men's league. So if y'all ever want to dust it off, you're always welcome. We have 2 divisions in the men's league, the A and the B. So I play every now and then in the B. The A division is like overseas players, like real serious division. So that's what I'm doing, man. I'm enjoying it. Been retired for a while and just enjoying my kids. I got 2 boys. My last one's about to graduate BC. He plays tennis there, and the other one is an artist doing his thing. So just enjoying, man.
That's great. I'm actually a Boston College kid myself. I graduated in 2011. So I crossed paths with like Reggie Jackson and that crew. But yeah, man, I want to talk about your basketball camps a little bit. So when we were kids, as Will said, we used to go every single summer, bro, at UMass Boston. I was there every single summer. I had the Dana Barros tank top, like the shiny one. You signed it and all this stuff. Man, like you were literally my childhood idol, bro. Like in the backyard when I was shooting around and I was shooting 3-pointers, I was practicing like the Dana Barros form and all that, man, all that stuff. So this is truly an honor for me. But one thing I remember from those camps, right? You would pop in and out of the gym and whatnot, but every week, and I was there, man, I'm telling you, I was there like every week. You would come through and you would give your little spiel and you would talk to the kids about, what it takes to become an NBA player and like trying to be realistic about everything. But there's one thing you always said that stood out to me. You used to say, find one thing and be great at that one thing. And for you, it was shooting, right? And you talked about how, when you were a kid, you'd always have your ball with you and you'd walk through the neighborhood and you'd be dribbling your ball. And obviously that's what I did, right? So that summer I had the ball with me and I was dribbling and I was trying to be you, man. I was really trying to be you. That's why I went to BC. I went to BC to try to walk in your footsteps, man. I'm telling you.
Records, man. Damn.
So I'm wondering, right? When you're giving those speeches, when you're talking to kids, I'm 32 years old now, right? So I'm a grown man. So like, do you recognize the impact that you have on these kids as a former NBA player and a local legend?
At the time, absolutely not. But I cannot tell you how many times when I'm going out to different places, watching my teams play. I could be in Rhode Island, I could be in New Hampshire, and so many referees or coaches come up to me and be like, yo, I used to go to your camp. And I mean, these dudes have like gray beards, you know what I mean? Like,
yo, you looking at one right here, man. I got the whiskers in here, salt and pepper all day.
And they used to tell me something like, they would say, your mom was unbelievable. Or they would say, yo, I remember you used to always do this. And then it started to hit me maybe like 10, 15 years ago when I used to run into these older people who said, you really changed me. You taught me more about life than about basketball, blah, blah, blah. So really, I don't really understand the impact until recently, and then just how many people that my family who ran the camp, we touched all over like New England and the country. It's just 30 years straight. I've never not had a basketball camp in 30 years. So we've been doing this a long time, and now I understand the impact, you know, and I appreciate you saying that because I just now realize what it is.
That's
Yeah,
what's
for
up,
sure.
man.
It's special, bro. It's special. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna pivot a little bit here. I want to talk a little bit about your NBA career, and specifically, I'm gonna start with something that's relevant right now. So obviously, free agency opened up for the NBA the other day, just yesterday. We actually had a live show, Greg and I here. So if y'all haven't heard that, definitely go through our feed. We posted it as a podcast as well, or you can find it on our Twitter page if y'all want to go back and watch that. But I want to talk about your time as a free agent. Obviously, Danny, you're the only one out of us here that's talking today that has any experience with this. So I want to hear from you and really specifically how you ended up in Boston, coming from Philly, ended up in Boston, coming off your best year as a pro. You were an all-star, 40 minutes per game. Dudes ain't running 40 minutes per game these days. Dana was running 40 minutes per game, 20 points per game, 7.5 assists, shooting dumb, stupid 46% on 5 3-point attempts per game before that was even in style. So tell me a little bit about what's it like to actually be a free agent. Go through that negotiations with the team you're on, all the players that you're connected with, finding out these different suitors, who's interested with you, and then ultimately ended up back with your hometown squad here in the Celtics.
Well, crazy story. So I'm in Philly, and it's nearing the end of the season, and I got a couple of offers. I know Philly offered me like a 3-year deal. You know, the owner was like kind of like, yeah, whatever. So I was in Washington, and I was getting ready to sign with the Bullets. They were the Bullets then. And they had Chris Webber, Juwan Howard.
Yo, that was an up-and-coming team right there. Yeah.
Cusp of being a really good team. So I'm sitting there. I met with the GM and the coach, and I'm driving back to Philly, and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to sign with the Bullets. And my agent is like, hey, let's just call ML just to tell him and see what's going to happen. Like kind of like as a joke of being facetious. So we're like, yeah, let's call him and tell him. So we put him on speakerphone, and my agent's like, ML, you're about to lose out on Dana. He's about to sign with the thing, you know. And we're like laughing in the background. And ML's like, all right, yeah, don't, you know, when you signing? And we're like, probably next day or two. So ML's like, all right, I'm going to call you back in a little while. We thought nothing of it. We hung the phone up. So I get to Philly. Then I go to the airport because I'm flying back to Boston, and my agent's blowing me up. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? I'm about to get on the plane. And he's like, Boston just offered you like $8 more million than the Bullets did. ML called me. And I was like, stop playing, man. Stop playing, right? So he was like, no, I'm dead serious. So I land in Boston, and they had the contract worked out and everything. It was like 4:30. So I get home, and I get home, and I'm later like, all right, we got it worked out. So I talked to ML, and he's like, Dana, we're going to sign the contract tomorrow. And I'm like, hell no, we ain't signing it tomorrow. I'll be there in like 45 minutes. I just left the airport. I could have went straight to the garden and been there quick, but I went home because I had my family with me. So I'm like, nah, I rode my motorcycle through 93 traffic and breakdown lanes because I said there's no way I'm going to sleep tonight without signing that Boston Celtics contract. And I signed the contract. On the way back, I bought a big bottle of champagne. I had it in my back, rode my motorcycle home. It was straight to the dome when I got home all night, man.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I never heard that before, man. So what was it as a local kid and a Boston College graduate? Did you ever have dreams of playing for the Celtics? Was that always your childhood dream? And, what was that like for you to actually, sign the deal and spend as many years as you did with the Celtics?
I definitely always wanted to play for the Celtics. I was a senior, and I remember I thought I was going to be a late first, early second round pick. And I remember the Celtics had the 14th pick, and I pretty much knew they weren't going to draft me. I wasn't positioned to be drafted that early. So when they picked, I think they picked Michael Young, who was a horrible pick at the time. And then Tim Hardaway went 15th. And then I went 16th to Seattle. And then Sean Kemp went 17th to Seattle. So you had 15, and Kemp going 17 was crazy. But Tim Hardaway went 15th. And I thought he was going to Boston actually at that time. So I was pretty disappointed that I wasn't in the range for them to pick me. And then Seattle picked me at 16 out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like David Stern went up to the mic and was like, with the 16th pick, Seattle selects Donna Barriosi, right? And I'm like, who the hell is Donna Barriosi, right? I'm like, it's me. I'm like, oh, snap, that's me. Right? So that's how it happened. I was in Chicago on draft day. The morning I met with Doug Collins and Jerry Krause. They told me they were going to take me with the 20th pick. They had the 20th and the 21st pick, and they told me, Dana, we're going to pick you with either one of those picks. So I'm going home bugging. Like, I'm playing with Michael Jordan, you know, and there wasn't no cell phone, so I couldn't call nobody. I'm just on bugging because the draft is that night. So I get home and I tell everybody I'm playing with Chicago. So when they picked me at 16, I wasn't even paying attention, man. I was just waiting for Chicago, and I cried like a baby because I did not want to go to Seattle.
Yo, so let me ask you, how does something like that happen? Because I feel like a similar story comes out. The NBA draft was just last week too. You know, a story like that comes out almost every year of a guy that has pretty much a guarantee from some team that, like, this is going to be your floor. If you're there, you're our pick. So just like you're talking about with Chicago, and then you hear of these teams that didn't work out with this individual player, had no communication, and then they end up going to take this guy, which, you know, feels real out of the blue, like you said. So after you got to Seattle, did you ever learn more of what it was that, you know, besides you being a great college player, which, I mean, it made sense, it's within the range, but you hadn't had any communication, the workouts, anything like that. So what was it that Seattle was like, yo, Barriosi's on the board at 16, we can't pass this up?
I don't know, because only team I visited was Seattle, obviously Boston, because I just went to their summer camp as a junior. Was Chicago, and I believe Miami was an expansion team, and I went and visited Miami, and they had like the 23rd pick, and they picked Sherman Douglas, and I would have loved to go to Miami if not Chicago. So I'm sitting there thinking I'm going to Chicago. They're telling me I'm a second round pick. Why would anyone pick me before that? So I had no idea, and I was just totally shocked. And I'm sitting in Boston like, you can't get any further away from Boston and Seattle. That's like the total max further city away. You know? And I'm like, what the hell is going on? But I did play in a senior all-star game in Seattle. So maybe that's when it all came about, because everyone saw me as a shooter, but then I went out there and, you know, when they would press you, I would just dribble through the press and break the press and show my speed. And then I think that's when I really moved up from second to first.
Yeah. So you were always looked at as a shooter, right? If you Google Dana Barros, one of the first things that's going to come up is that 3-point streak. So I little story time, and I need to get your perspective of it. Okay. Because for me, I'm going to tell you, I told you, bro, you were my childhood hero, right? So from this night, what I remember, I actually texted my brother about it. And I'm like, yo, Charles, like, I'm about to interview Dana Barros, bro. Like, is there anything that you want me to ask him? Like, I don't know if I have the perfect question yet. And he's like, I mean, you got to talk to him about Dana Barros basketball camps, but you also got to ask him that night against the Knicks when they denied you the ball, like 5 against 1, so you couldn't get that final shot off. And you got to let him know that all three of us, me, my brother Charles, and my sister Stephanie, we all went to bed crying. Right. And yo, for the rest of my life, and RIP right now, but like, Anthony Mason was my least favorite player ever, bro, because the broadcast, they cut to Anthony Mason on like a dead ball, and he had his hands on his knees, he's pouring sweat, and he has this like evil smile on his face because he's like, we're shutting this motherfucker down. He is not getting this 3-pointer right now.
Right.
So I got to get your perspective on the night that 3-point streak ended. Tell me about it, man.
Well, I mean, it was really getting to a point where it was becoming more than I wanted. So every game I would try to go out and get it immediately so that it just would be over with and no one would talk about it. So I remember that game, and I mean, they were denying me the ball. Like, they were trapping me off every pick and roll, and they would never rotate off me. And I remember that, you know, they were making a concerted effort just to not give me any shots, period, you know. And then I remember third quarter comes and we're down by a lot. I don't know, maybe 15 or whatever. And I remember coming out the game, and ML asked me, did I want to go back in the game with like 6 minutes to go? And I said, no. I said, I'm good. And he said, what about the streak? I said, I'm good. I'm good with the streak, right? So I was at that point, I was all set. I was good with it. But then the fans started saying, put Dana back. So then I'm like, oh, damn, all right. So let me go out here and try to knock one of these threes down. So I go to the scorer's table, and Don Nelson, the coach of the New York Knicks, somebody came up to him and whispered in his ear, and he yelled out on the court, do not let Dame touch the ball.
Damn.
Let him get a three. So now I'm like, oh, okay, oh, shit, okay. So now I go from not caring to I'm about to shoot about 30 of these joints from like 45. Like, so I'm coming over half court, and there's 4 people standing there. And they were getting 3 and 4 illegal defenses in a row. And they were up 20, so they didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
But at each minute that went by, they just were like coming up higher and higher and denying me the ball. And I remember in that 6 minutes, I was like 0 for 6, and they were all like 28-foot shots. And I made one, right in the corner in front of the Knicks bench, and the ref blew the whistle. And I jumped up because I thought it was an and one, and I'm dropping, yeah, motherfucker, yeah. And stepped out of bounds, and I was like,
oh man.
So I thought I had it, but and then after the game, ML Carr chased Don Nelson down the hallway. He was so mad at him. And I was kind of glad it was over, but it became such a crazy story. Everybody wanted to talk about it, but that was crazy. If there was internet back then, it would have been crazy.
Oh, for sure. And poor me, I went to bed crying that night.
Those Knicks teams, man, those were they were like the definition of a bully team back then. Those Knicks teams, were they the least favorite team that you played against, or did you have a particular team or maybe a particular player that you hated playing against?
Least favorite, because they were always that way. They never had, like, when I came in the league, they were that way, and then let's say Pat Riley was there, and then they go to Van Gundy, and he's the same way. And then Pat Riley goes to Miami and does the same thing in Miami with Orlando. Then Indiana sees him winning, and then Indiana says, okay, let me get the Davis boys, and then Detroit, so it became the Knicks, and I would definitely say Detroit when Dumars and those were still the teams you hated to play against. Rick Horn and Dennis Rodman and Lambert. There was absolutely a no layup rule in effect. I remember getting clothesline in Utah and being like not knowing who I was for a day and a half. I remember going to the free throw line, making the free throws, and going to the bench. And Sean Kempen and everyone tells me this story afterwards. The trainer is screaming my name as I'm in the huddle, Dana, and I'm not answering. So he
didn't say Barriosi.
Yeah. You don't hear me calling you? And I'm like, I heard you yelling, but I didn't know you was calling me. I didn't know my name. So they took me out the game. I went to the hospital, and I had a concussion. I didn't know my wife. I didn't know the teammates.
Wow.
My mom and my dad. So I had to stay in Utah a day to let the swelling go down. Then I flew home. And when I got home, my mother and my sister were there. I didn't know them until the next day. But before that happened to me, Antoine Carr and Karl Malone told me, the next time you come in here with that finger roll shit, we're going to F you up. And they did. And that's
they didn't lie. They didn't lie.
That's how the game was. And there was no, fines and suspensions and none of that.
Yeah.
Free throws and the game played on,
to that point, if that's how the game was, given your style of play, and I kind of laid it out in your All-Star season, talking about the amount of threes, the percentage that you were hitting, as you watch how the game has transformed and developed to what we see today, what the Warriors have kind of brought on, and, different teams, pace and space have all adapted to, do you ever think about what your career might have looked like if you had played in this generation versus the 90s, or is that something that doesn't even cross your mind?
Man, everybody who knows me and watched me play says that to me when they walk up to me. Bro, if you would have played today, it would have been great. And then what I always say to them, yeah, that would have been a max deal situation right there. That would have been
that was my point with bringing up your whole free agency thing, man. It was like that numbers that you had on a free agency level, yo, you would have been top tier. You would have been the Woj bomb yesterday that everybody was waiting on.
Yeah, that would have been crazy. And even like, because when I signed my deal, like I signed it like a $20 million deal for 6 years, right? And then the next year there was a lockout. So right after the lockout, the guys who had my stats signed this $80 million deals. Gary Payton was a better player than me, but we had some Stephon Marbury. Had similar. They signed $80 million deals because the TV revenues went up, the salary caps went up. So even a year or two later, that same season would have been a crazy bag. You know what I mean? So, and then that first year of my deal, where I made the most money, like, because I had an escalator starting bigger in the beginning of the deal and going down. That year was like $5 million, and we had a lockout.
So you even lost part of that.
I only made like $1 million of that $5 million the first year of my deal because of the lockout. So, yeah, it was just, man, it was crazy, man. It was, you know, just timing. I was lucky to get that deal from a free agent standpoint, but you know, I'd never look back and wish anything different. But I'm like, damn, you know.
Yeah, and piggybacking off of that, man, like you shot 5 threes a game that year in Philly. What do you think Dana Barros' stats look like in 2021? How many threes you getting up?
Well, they don't double team pick and rolls now, so I don't understand. Like, I don't understand the concept of the defense, because when Steph Curry comes off a pick and roll, and he can just call the center out, and you will switch your center on him and play one-on-one with the best player in the world. That is crazy to me. And he can get a shot, any shot he wants at any time. So he's averaging, 11 threes a game? Because of the defense they're playing. I can promise you, you look back at any tape in the 90s when I'm playing, even when I'm not an all-star, if I'm coming off a pick and roll, it's an automatic trap. And I don't understand it. So I feel like I would get up 8 to 10 threes a game. Back then, I would get threes in the break. I wasn't never rotated off of and left wide open to do that. So to me, it's easier to score from that standpoint. I just can't believe that James Harden can just call whoever he wants for a pick and roll, and they switch and he plays one-on-one. That to me is the insanity of the game today outside of the three-point shooting. I just don't understand it. I would rather double team him and stay on. If I'm a double team Steph, stay on Clay. Draymond Green can have 42 points. I don't care. 100 threes. I don't care. But I'm double teaming Steph and I'm face guarding Clay. Everyone else, do your thing. That's how we played back then, you know. So
for sure,
just different.
So it sounds like you still watch a lot of the game today.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what are you thinking about the moves that the Celtics are making, and you know what do you make of the Jays and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and how we're building the team around them?
Amazing young players. During the pandemic, those guys worked out at my gym, so I got to see them on a pretty good basis for like a month period, watching them, you know, do individual stuff and some other workout stuff. So it was just amazing to watch them, to see the size, you know what I mean? And I think Tatum is close to the like 6'10", you know what I mean? 6'11". But just to watch them work out, and they would play against each other every day. So I got to really see, you know, the friendship, but also the talent and the engagement with those guys. So I really have a soft heart for the Celtics, being from Boston and wanting to do better. And what I see is Brad kind of making moves to where all the guys he's bringing in really have 1 year left on their deal. And next year you could have a lot of cap space. They didn't bring Fournier back. So I just think right now he's trying to maintain, still be very competitive. You know, having a core group of guys that they have with Smart. But again, I think there's some things that's going to happen, and if not this year, definitely next year. And I look for Brad to be a little more aggressive than Danny would. Danny would make a move and then hold on to those. Like the first day out the gate, Brad was like, bam, bam, you know.
Yeah.
So I see him being a little more aggressive, you know, with the picks and with maybe some of the young players. So I look for movement.
Yeah, Brad's definitely not being shy. And I actually want to take a minute here to try and connect this Celtics team to your time with the Celtics a little bit. And, you know, before I get to my real question, I gotta ask you to confirm or deny this. In my research before this, I was looking up some different interviews that you had done in the past. So please confirm or deny. Did y'all actually call Paul Pierce Bad Body P in the locker room?
Yeah, we did. When he first came in, like he was all like janky and like up, so he didn't look like he looked slow motion. Then all of a sudden, like we started going up and down, and he took off on like 3 people. We were like, damn.
Yeah.
He go though.
Right? Yeah, you pull up Paul Pierce's highlight reel, he dunked on a lot of dudes' heads in his time in the NBA. So don't be fooled by that body. But, you know, with that, what I want to ask you, especially now you're talking about, you know, you got a chance to see Jalen and Jason, you know, work out very recently. And, you know, you were there with the Celtics during the early days of Antoine and Paul. So I'm curious to know if there are any parallels that, you know, maybe you can draw between the early days of Paul and Antoine, 2 really young kids, still becoming adults and grown men, but they're your all-star players. They're your best players. They're trying to lead a team. And it's very similar to a degree with what we have right now with Jalen and Jason. So as someone that, you know, has a connection to both of those duos, I'm curious to know if there's any parallels that you've seen between the two.
That's a great question, and that's a great comparison because I look at Paul being very similar to Tatum. You know what I mean? Like, where Tatum is not like, you're not going to see him like super explosive. He kind of has slow motion movements and he shoots that shot where you can't get to it. He fades away. And so to me, is very similar to Paul in those aspects. You know what I mean? So it's a great question because I think Tatum and Brown reached the pinnacle so early with those Isaiah Thomas's and going to the Eastern Conference Finals early in their career that right now there's a stigma about their underachieving. You know what I mean? Where, where this year is going to be down, where they're really overachieved at those times and have kind of fallen back. And even though Tatum and Brown have really stepped up, at those times the whole team overachieved. And I think all of our expectations rose unexpectedly. So, they have way more expectations, I think, than Paul and Antoine. You know, like Paul was kind of a clown type of guy, funny, you know, coming to the press conference with his head taped up, you know.
I remember that game. That was hilarious.
And then when KG came, he changed the whole culture. Like Paul became 30 minutes before practice, 30 minutes after practice. KG changed that whole culture, and Paul became, you know, an unbelievable professional with a cook and a hyperbaric chamber and, you know, all those different things. So I see these guys having so much success earlier. They have a little more pressure on them than those guys did.
And you mentioned how when they came to work out at your gym, you saw that they had a strong bond, right? I don't know if you're on Twitter or anything like that, Dana, but there is this weird narrative because of all the Bradley Beal rumors that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown aren't necessarily close or aren't tight. So can you just squash that right now? If you can, please just like save us and let the people know that these dudes have a good relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, I would see no indication that they don't. I think, you know, this is more so just hyperbole from a lot of the major networks. Bradley Beal has said he's not going anywhere this year and he would be a free agent next year. And I just feel like that is great as Bradley Beal is. That's a sideways move. Like you would have to move Jalen to make that move. So are you really improving? You know what I mean? Yeah, you're getting maybe better chemistry, but what about the other 4 guys who like Jalen? Like you're creating, you know, a lot of stuff and to me, to get him an open free agency, I don't know. I think that's just a gamble. So I think that they're very bonded, and I think that those 2 guys, Tatum and Brown, have communicated that, yo, this is some bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure JT was like, yo, this is some, you know, and I'm sure that's what it went down, and then that's it. You don't got to worry about it no more, you know?
Yeah, on that note of, you know, the relationships that, you know, from the media look at, and they draw all these, you know, crazy conclusions, most of which are, you know, unfounded. You know, how tight really is that bond in that locker room where most of these dudes see these reports? And if you have any examples, I'd love to hear one, because I know, you've been on teams that had these real high profile duos, whether it's, Gary Payton and Sean Kemp. We just talked about, Antoine and Paul, where it's kind of even collectively as a team, even if it's not just the two individuals, where it's like, man, these people are out their damn minds. We all just went to dinner last night. Like, what are they talking about that we don't get along? We went on vacation with our families, 2 weeks ago. Like, what's it like in the locker room when y'all see that and you're just like, man, this is ridiculous?
Well, I've seen both sides. I've seen where
Okay,
when Rick Pitino was here, there was so much turmoil because he wanted to win now, and the media started to get on him. We would have meetings where like there would be like yelling matches, and then the very next day, word for word in the newspaper, like a source said, boom, 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 boom. And we was like, oh, snap, that's word for word. So we knew like there was a snitch in the locker room. So it was like on their P's and Q's. So, but then I've been in other situations. And even in that same situation, the media said it was D Brown. And it wasn't. And we all knew it wasn't. But they kept saying, because D was very disgruntled and got traded, was saying that he was the one doing, and it wasn't him. And we all wanted to stand up and go, yo, this is crazy. It's not D. And we knew who it was. So in that one situation, you get both sides of the coin. You get the absolute truth that the media is telling, but then you have that locker room untrust where someone in the locker room is literally telling word for word what's going on in the locker room.
Can you tell us who it was?
I'm not gonna do that.
I figured that was as much, but I gotta ask. You threw it out there that you knew who it was, so I gotta ask.
It was another guard. It was like 7 guards on the team, though. So you got
yeah.
Okay, all right. So, yo, what do you think? That would look like today, right? You talk about the media and the way that social media has changed the game, right? I actually want to talk to you a little bit about something that you did back in 1994, where you dropped a record, right? You dropped the record, Check It, which is dope, right? If people that are listening didn't know Dana Barros can rap, Dana Barros can really rap. Like I know that there's that stigma that all hoopers want to be rappers and all rappers want to be hoopers, but Dana Barros can rap. So considering the content of that song, which is, it's not, you're not talking crazy or anything like that, but what do you think that would look like if you had put out Check It in the year 2021? How do you think that would have been impacted by social media? And do you think you still would have done it knowing what social media can do?
Yeah, I still would have done it, because a lot of parents today, they'll come up to my gym and be like, oh, I saw your video. And
it's dope.
Smoking but if you see, this is where I tell people, if you don't understand music and rap and the hip hop culture, you shouldn't be critiquing songs, because I told the parents, if you listen to the song, I said, smoking like a Spike Lee joint. That's not, I'm not saying that's a metaphor of I'm on fire, like I'm, you know what I mean? And then and in the second metaphor, I said, puffing on Chronic, which was a Dr. Dre album. I wasn't literally puffing on, you know what I mean? So when the people would ask me, I would explain that to them. I say, you're coming up and you don't understand the metaphors in the, you know what I'm saying? So that I would get people off me for that, but I could not imagine having Instagram, or I don't have a Twitter now. I just have Instagram. I just got on because everybody was killing me. I don't even have Facebook, bro. I don't want nobody physical finding me. I'm all set, bro. Like, I'm different, no. So I don't have Twitter because it's just words, and you can sometimes just say crazy stuff, and I don't even want to get into that, because if somebody says something to me, I'm always gonna say something back, and I don't even want to get into that. So I couldn't imagine Michael Jordan, just at a bar having a drink and everybody having a phone, or if he signs an autograph, now he's with this chick, and he's like, bro, I can't imagine LeBron right now. I'm surprised he hasn't been caught doing like banana stuff, like,
Nothing.
Because everyone has a phone. So this, to me, I mean, it keeps you on your P's and Q's as an athlete. If you're a major athlete, you're a commodity, you're a corporation. right? You're making millions, if not hundreds or tens of millions off the court as well. This is serious out here.
It's real, man. This is hop on your motorcycle, cut through every bit of traffic you can in 93, sign that dotted line, and go get them bags type money.
So do you still rap today?
Yeah, my son is actually an amazing artist. We have a couple of songs on SoundCloud, and I was actually thinking about doing an album with him because he's really like a soulful rapper. Like he's like a roots type of rapper, a Talib Kweli, like, and so we have probably 10 songs together. You know, I do a couple of Instagram shots. I'll throw something on Dana Barros Music if it doesn't get taken down. But it's very soulful. It's very uplifting. Like, and I would love to do an album with him. You know, like a live music band album. Like, you know, all the instruments are done live, and he would be the ill. I would like to do something like that. I would love to do that. That's a dream of mine because I still love music. I still do music, and I still feel like I'm nice.
Dude, you could spit. You could spit. So I'm actually a rapper. I'm in a band down here in Austin, Texas, and I would love to get you as a feature, bro. If we could get the Dana Barros feature, or let me link with your son, and we could set something up, man, because we're doing some big things down here.
Send me the beats, whatever. I hit it. My son does all the production with the thing, so we'll drop it and send it right back, man.
Let's get it.
Go. Making connections out here. Yo, Dana, we appreciate that. I'm amped for the Dana Barros, the Barros family crossover with Black Sheep Optimist. I can't wait for that. We really appreciate you coming on this show, Dana. We talked at the beginning, you know, what it means to us having gone to your camps and being a big fan of you, you know, being another guy from Boston. You don't always see a lot of dudes from Boston in the NBA, but from like real Boston, if you know, right. Actually from the 617, as right. We are the 617 podcast. So, you know, we love having you on here. But before we get you out of here, man, we got to put you through what we call the Green with Them Be Fast break. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to throw 60 seconds on the clock. And by the clock is my iPhone. We ain't fancy. We don't got no special technical abilities out here. Put 60 seconds on the clock. Greg and I are going to go back and forth asking you quick hitting questions. It's going to be yes, no, true, false, name this, name that. And we're going to try and then we'll go ahead and get you out of here and give you a minute to talk about anything you got to promote. Does that sound good, my man?
Let's go.
All right. We got 60 seconds on the clock. Greg, you're going to start us off here in 3, 2, 1.
Who would win in a rap battle, you or Shaq?
Definitely me.
Better in-game dunker, Vince Carter or Sean Kemp?
Sean Kemp.
Should the Celtics re-sign or trade Marcus Smart?
Re-sign, can always trade later.
Second best Boston College basketball player ever?
Sarah Bain.
Ooh. Best
player you've ever trained or coached?
Nerlens Noel or Michael Carter Williams came to my camp.
Player into
Shabazz Napier as well.
Okay. Ooh, shout out Shabazz. Player in today's NBA who most reminds you of yourself?
Trae Young.
If 1994 Dana Barros was in the NBA today, he would average how many points?
26 and 8.
Boom. All right. There it is. Thank you, Dana. We appreciate that, man. That's our fast break right there. Hopefully that wasn't too bad for you.
Nah, it's all love, man. It's all love.
Oh, man, Will, you didn't let me do my last one.
This is why I asked you to do the clock, my dude.
No, just finish the sentence for me, Dana.
Right.
Bing, bang, boom.
Barrows.
Let's go.
Hey, there it is. There it is.
R.I.P. to my guy Tommy, man. R.I.P.
I know. We got a lot of love for Tommy here, man. Tommy's the voice of our generation. That's all I know. Watching the Celtics game is Tommy and Mike going back and forth on the mic. Yo, Dana, before we get you out of here, man, I know you got to practice. You got to get to here in a minute. Anything you want to shout out? Go ahead. Take the floor for a minute, man. We want to give you a chance to do what you got to do here.
I just want to say, I appreciate you guys having me on. Go check out DanaBarros3.com, DanaBarros3.com if you want to check out the facility. I have a 5-court facility, 40 AAU teams, and we're trying to teach the young kids how to do it right, learn how to play the right way, share the basketball, don't do step backs till you make your threes. I mean, till you free throws, and just enjoying life. So once again, appreciate you guys having me on, and I need those beats, bro.
I got you. Yo, is what's your son's like Instagram handle so that people can find him?
Barros, SPALDING Barros. So he's an amazing artist with the art, and he has a SoundCloud. You'll see his SoundCloud link. I'm on a couple of those songs on his SoundCloud link as well.
Where we'll make sure in the description that we link to the IG account. We'll put in the website as well. Make sure that we get that in there for y'all. We appreciate y'all joining us today. This has been an awesome edition of Green with Envy. As always, please go subscribe, follow, 5-star rating. All of that helps us out a ton. We appreciate the love y'all gave us on the live stream we did the other day for free agency. As I mentioned, we'll be doing more of those, hopefully getting some more guests, some more amazing guests like Dana to join us. But Greg, as you do each and every time, my man, go ahead and give us your final thoughts and send us on out of here.
Man, this was an honor, Dana, for real. Like I said earlier, you were literally my childhood hero, so I appreciate you, bro. And I really do want to link on the track, so we'll definitely set that up. I don't know what song is about to play for people. There is. I wrote a verse back in the day that references Dana, so I'm actually going to see if I can dig that up and play that right at the end of this for people that are listening on the pod. So I don't know what you're going to hear, but you're going to hear some music right now. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.